everyone, Miss Meek here, and today we're going to be talking about converting fractions into decimals. Converting fractions into decimals. There is a video up about how to convert decimals into fractions on my YouTube channel. So if you're looking for that, this is not that video. This is going the other way. So converting a fraction into a decimal. We're going to talk about two different methods and ways of solving these types of problems. The first way is setting up a division problem. Now, one of the hardest things about setting up a division problem with a fraction is knowing what number goes where. Because when we divide, we have a division house that looks like this. And a number goes inside and a number goes outside. The number that goes inside is called the dividend. And the number that goes outside is called the divisor. And so knowing which number is what on a fraction can be one of the confusing things that is hard to remember. So I have a little saying called TIBO that helps me remember what number goes where. TIBO stands for top, inside, bottom, outside. And what this is referring to is on a fraction, you have a numerator and a denominator. The numerator is the top number and the denominator is the bottom number. And so when we set up our division house, what TIBO reminds us is where each number goes. The top number, the 3, is going to go inside, and the bottom number, our denominator, the 4, is going to go outside. So it helps me remember what number goes where, so that way I can divide and I can get the decimal that I am looking for. So let's go ahead, jump in, and use TIBO to do a couple of examples. So when using TIBO, my top number here is going to go inside of my division house. My bottom number, my denominator, is going to go outside of my division house. So when I go ahead and I set up my division problem, the 4 is going to go inside and the 5 is going to go outside. Now, I know that 5 cannot fit into 4, so I'm going to put a 0 on my quotient line. And then I need to add a decimal point and bring it up to my answer line and add a 0. We continue to divide because our whole goal is to turn this fraction into a decimal, so there has to be a decimal point somewhere, and that is how we add it to our problem. So I'm going to go ahead and continue my dividing. Now I ask, how many times does 5 fit into 40? Well, 5 fits into 40 8 times, and 8 times 5 is 40. I subtract, and I get a 0. I know that my division is done when I have a 0 here at the bottom, and I don't have any other numbers other than zeros to bring down. So my division is finished, and my final answer is 8/10. On number 2, let's go ahead and set this one up. So I have my division house. My numerator goes inside, and my denominator goes outside. So remember, TI for tie and BO for bottom outside. So TI for top inside, BO for bottom outside there. Okay? Now I'm going to go ahead and begin dividing. 8 does not fit into 3, so I put a 0 down. I add a decimal point, it's going to get brought up to our quotient line, and I add a 0 so I can continue on dividing, turning this into a decimal. 8 fits into 30 3 times. 3 times 8 is 24. I subtract. When I subtract, I get a 6. I'm not done dividing because I don't have a 0 there, so I'm going to add another 0, bring it down, and continue my division. How many times does 8 go into 60? That is going to be 7 times. 7 times 8 is 56. I subtract again. I get a 4. Still not done. Don't have a 0 down there on the bottom yet. So I bring down another 0. 8 goes into 40 5 times. 5 times 8 is 40. I subtract. I get my 0. I have no more numbers to bring down. I have a 0 down here at the bottom, and so that means that I am finished. My final answer here is 0 and 375 thousandths. Now there's another way that you can do this. It only works for certain fractions. You have to have friendly fractions that can either multiply to 10, 100, or 1,000. So if you have a friendly fraction that can multiply to 10, 100, or 1,000, you can use this method. This method doesn't involve any division. It just involves multiplying. The only problem with it is it doesn't work all the time. So if you have a number or a fraction like thirds or sixths or sevenths or ninths, elevenths, things like that, it's really, it won't work because it's going to be really difficult for you to find a number to multiply by to get to 10, 100, or 1,000. There actually isn't one. And so this doesn't work for all fractions, but it does work for friendly ones. So let's go ahead and take a look at how this works. My goal is to multiply this 4 times something to get either a 10, a 100, or 1,000. Well, I know that 4 times 2 is 8, and 4 times 3 is 12, so I don't think I'm going to be able to multiply to 10. However, I do know 4 times 25 gets me a 100 on the bottom. And whatever I do to the denominator, I also have to do to the numerator, okay? And when I do that, I get 75 100ths. Well, think about that place value, 75 100ths. I know how to write that as a decimal. I just have to write the 75 hundredths in the hundredths place. And so if I can get a 10, a 100, or 1,000, I know that place value. That's place value that I've been practicing. And so I can take that fraction and rewrite it into a decimal by just doing a little bit of multiplying. Let's take a look at the next one, number 4. All right, I know that 5 times 2 is 10, so that will get me a 10 on the bottom. I also have to multiply the top times 2 as well, and that's going to get me 2 over 10. So essentially what we're doing is finding an equivalent fraction that has a 10, a 100, or 1,000 as the denominator. I know the place value of this. This is 2 tenths, and so I just have to make sure that 2 is in the tenths place, which is right after the decimal point. Now number 5 is a little trickier, 1/8. When I think about multiplying to get to 10, nothing times 8 gives me 10. Nothing times 8 gives me 100. And I happen to know that something times 8 will give me 1,000. That number is 125. So that one's kind of tricky. That one's kind of hard to remember. But there is a big enough number to multiply it up to get to 1,000. Again, this is just another method, another way that you can do this. It doesn't work for all fractions. And personally, I think sometimes that if you're not really good with multiplying, if you're not super great with your multiplication facts, this way is usually going to be a little bit harder for you than just using Tybo to divide the fraction to turn it into a decimal. So whatever I do to the top or the bottom, I have to also do to the top. And so when I do that, I end up with 125 thousandths. Again, I know how to write that as a decimal. I just have to make sure that that 125 ends in the thousandths place right there. And so I can turn it into a decimal. All right, guys, so like I said, Tybo, which is this method, division, I find to be a little bit easier. It also works for every single fraction, no matter how friendly they are or how mean they are. It works for any type of fraction that you have. This is another method that you can use, that if you have a friendlier fraction that you can multiply to 10, 100, or 1,000, be my guest. Go ahead and use that way. But those are 2 options that you can use in order to convert fractions into decimals. I hope this video has helped you. And if you would like to learn about how to turn a decimal into a fraction, I have that video on my YouTube channel as well. All right, well, I'll talk to you later. Bye.